The World Cup of Soccer finals is happening on Sunday. France is playing Argentina. Now imagine with me, just play along, imagine with me for a bit, if the head coach of France sent French spies into the Argentina team. And he had one goal: to convince as many of the players on Argentina's team not to show up for the game. For some, the French spies offered them a special vacation package in the French Alps. It was quite an amazing deal, and many accepted this package and flew from Qatar to France on Saturday. For others, the French spies showed them a video compilation comparing all the Argentina players against their best player, Lionel Messi, and many Argentina players realized that, hey, they're not good enough as Lionel Messi, so why don't we just let him play and we can just stay home? We wouldn't be very helpful anyway if we showed up, especially compared to Lionel Messi. And finally, for some players, the French spies gave them a long list of how they've messed up in the past, especially in the World Cup so far. And these players were so discouraged that they decided, why should I show up if I'm just going to keep messing up? As a result, the French spies were successful in convincing 23 of 26 players on Argentina's team not to show up for the World Cup final. And so on game day, we only had 3 players on Argentina's team: Lionel Messi and maybe a goalie and a defender. Now imagine with me all the Argentina fans that came to Qatar. Imagine how heartbroken they would be. They paid all this money, showing up at the final game, and only 3 players showed up. They would have thought those 23 players were chosen to be on this team. Those 23 players had unique talents and gifts. There was a reason the head coach chose them to be on the team. They had a crucial role to play, and they didn't show up. Argentina fans would be heartbroken. Think of how foolish those Argentina players would feel if they're, say, in the French Alps, turning on the TV, and then all of a sudden they hear their name being called, and they're not there. Imagine how foolish they would feel. By contrast, imagine how excited all the French fans would be if they saw what had just taken place. Not only would they realize, okay, they're going to destroy Argentina, this is going to be amazing, but they would probably tell each other, this is the greatest trick ever played in the World Cup of soccer history. And the French would rejoice in their trickery. Last week, I was at Notre Dame High School watching the World Cup with students, and I told them this analogy. And then I dropped the bomb and I said, this is actually happening in the church today. Yeah, believe it or not, this whole analogy is taking place in the church. We really are in a game. We really do have an opposing team. Satan actually is the head coach of our opposing team. And he has plenty of spies trying to convince as many people as possible in the church not to show up to the game. Every single person here who has had the sacrament of confirmation, there was a moment in which you actually said that you were choosing to be on God's team, that you had a real role to play on God's team, that you were actually going to engage in a battle, in a war, in a real contest where the salvation of souls is taking place. Our life is really like the World Cup of salvation history. And the reality is, like, the stadium is packed. All the angels and saints, they're watching us. They really are. And every single person here has a crucial role to play in the game. And yet, we hear the statistics of how many people have been tricked, whether they know it or not to show up to the game. And so every single person here, your life today is just as important as any player playing in the World Cup on Sunday morning. World Cup of finals for soccer is happening Sunday morning, and every single moment of that game, they would say, is so important. Every single moment of that game has so much value for what is going to take place, who's going to win the game. And that's the reality of our lives today as well. Every single moment not just has value for a game that's eventually going to pass away and no one's going to remember it, but our lives really have eternal value. Eternal value. One day, no one will think any more about soccer, but all that will matter is our lives and how we've responded to the one game that actually matters. And so all the angels and saints are watching us today. You know, this is actually the World Cup.